Hey everyone, we are here with the race report for the 2023 edition of the Folsom Swimrun. One double winner joining us on the show this week to talk about how it went. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Low Tide Boys, a Swimrun podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this is episode 187. As just mentioned, we're giving our race report for the Folsom Swimrun, the 2023 edition, and true to episode number form, 187, which is police code for murder.
Oh.
And rap music, and I think it's an actual police code.
Okay.
Chipper just murdered this race.
Wow.
2 W's. He ran the short course, ran the long course, solo. We're going to get all into it, but he won both. So congratulations, Chipper.
Thank you.
Strong workout there.
Appreciate it.
But I guess first question is to kick it off. How was it? You know, just like overall impressions, first impressions of the race.
It was a lot of fun. Mission accomplished on the fun aspect. This is the second year doing this, a second year race. So we, Bill and the TBF, Total Body Fitness crew, they put on, I would say, at least 30 endurance events. They got triathlons, trail runs, mountain bike rides, Xterra style triathlons, swim runs now. Mm-hmm. So we were happy to see this one come back. We had a blast last time. We brought the families. I went and sort of ran it back this time with the family. Stayed at the
same hotel.
Same hotel. Funny little story about that, but overall, great day out there. Not only for myself, but everybody else. You saw smiling, you saw grimacing, so you knew everyone was having fun out there.
Yeah, and you might be wondering at home why did Chipper get the W's and just Chipper? I wasn't there. So the nonprofit that I've been running for 10 years, this was the last event that we're ever going to do. So I felt like, I wanted and had to be there for that one. So Chipper was representing for the brand.
Yes, that was one of my main goals, not to tarnish the good name that we had.
I think if anything, you just made it too lofty.
Oh boy.
So
I didn't intend to do that. But and funny enough, you have your own solo swim run coming up later this year at Cape Cod. So we, as I was telling some people, like, oh, we're still definitely a touring band, but we're branching out on some solo projects as well. This is what I was.
Are you like Phil Collins leaving Genesis?
I was going to say we would probably have who's going to be George Harrison and who's Paul McCartney if we were to.
Yeah, the Beatles are definitely staying together. Yeah, so thank you for everyone who reached out to me being like, hey man, missed you this weekend. It's like, missed you too. But I'm really happy that you went. I mentioned to you before recording after the race, Kristen, your wife, was keeping me abreast as to all the goings-ons. And yeah, man, super proud of you, man. It's definitely threw down and put together something pretty cool. I mean, to get 2 W's. So I guess let's start with sort of race morning. What was the vibe? I saw from the photos, I mean, it looked like there was like at least twice as many people as there were last year.
Yeah, I can confirm. I chatted with Bill. I said, seems like the turnout's great. Twice as much. He said, we're really happy with it. Definitely twice as much. And again, we saw some familiar faces around. Blake, who was episode 2 from Beacon Blake, was episode 3. He was up there. We saw our good friend Sarah from Petaluma. Her and her husband reigning kept their crown as the mixed team champion. They pointed out not only was there twice as many people, which is good. There was more swim run suits. There was more arc. There was more proper pull buoys. Mm-hmm. People kind of were figuring out a little bit, and I think that was another good sign to me. Is like, okay, maybe this isn't their first swim run. They've dabbled. They're checking out. I saw an Orcas. Someone wore their Orcas bib as well. So people, this isn't their first time around. I think that was a really positive vibe for the race as well.
And to be honest, like this is, I mean, it's almost embarrassing to say that this is the only swim run in California. But, got to give it up to TBF Racing. Like, they put on a good event. I mean, it's a short race, so we're not, this isn't some like we'll go into distances in a minute, but it's a short, compact race, very approachable, very, participant friendly. Last year when we did it, someone raced it with his dog.
Yeah.
So for it to be the only race in California, while it's a bummer that we should definitely have more, and it's such an endurance, rich environment. Kudos to TBF Racing for putting on a good race.
Yeah, definitely. But to get into race morning, so it was going to be hot. It was the temperature. It was a little bit cooler. It was only 96 was a slotted high for
dry heat
for that day. It's a dry heat, and the race started. The short course started at 8 a.m. and the long course started at 9. And sort of before this whole thing, I was only planning on doing the long course one, but we got cut short at Odyssey Casco Bay, and we sort of been getting drawing the short straws on the races this year, and we haven't had a really good chance to kind of flex the fitness and everything. And I thought, well, let me just do a little noodling, and the short course, I kind of measured it out.
Yeah, it's 3.5 miles total with 4 swims and 3 runs. So, it's like a 5-ish K
like
of
a 5K
activity.
swim run. And I'm like, okay, I looked at the time the year before. 58 minutes was the winning time. And I was like, okay, that's cutting it close.
I'm pretty sure you can do 3 miles in an hour.
Okay. I wasn't sure though. And I was sort of approaching it in my head as like, this is a long kind of training day, but I'm going to really give it the gas. And that's how I was approaching these 2 races. So I was really trying to be mindful of my fueling, of like, hey, normally during an hour race, maybe you would have 1 gel just for good measure, but I had to think about it. Not only did I have that race, but I had another one after. And I wanted to make sure I got a good warm-up in. So we actually booked the same hotel, which is literally the swim exit 1 is right in the backyard of the hotel. So I literally jogged, got all dressed up in my stuff race morning, jogged down. Waking up at 6:30 for a race I got a full night's of sleep, so that was nice. I did a little 10-minute jog, so basically the exit of swim 1 to the entrance of swim 2, and I swam to the race start. So I swam across the river. The water was cold. It was colder than it was last year by a few degrees, and there was a few people that I think that did give them a little bit of trouble, but I wore the Vig Air because I knew that was the suit to have because the heat on the run. But it definitely was an invigorating swim, to say the least. But yeah, I really try to have a good approach. I didn't try to put too much pressure on the situation. I think it kind of being the smaller, like a local race, that really helped things. It didn't, Casco, everyone's there, everyone's really excited for the big event, and this, people were excited and everything, but I was like, okay, it was maybe a little bit less kind of pressure.
And I think this is probably going to be the first of many where I'm just going to check you a little bit on this, because you've been training super hard all year. You're fitter as a swim runner than I think you've ever been. This is the fittest swim runner you've been since we've been swim running since 2018. And I think you were primed. So I think I loved it when you put it out there. It's like, I'm going to do the short course and the long course. And I remember texting you, be like, oh yeah, that's like a boss move. Like, let's go.
Yeah, I was excited. I was excited to do them both, for sure. And the first swim is like a K. It's a pretty good. And I was like, I had a few things that I wanted to accomplish on the day. 1, impress Chris. 2, don't tarnish the Low Tide Boys brand. 3, swim hard. Pit some good swims. Don't and focus on fueling as well. Even though it's kind of shorter, you don't want to fall behind and be blowing up on like a shorter event.
And remind me, like you were thinking of this as like, hey, this is one race with like an intermission after 3.5 miles. So you were fueling. You were thinking about the quote unquote long course.
Yes.
At the start of the short course, because for you, this is like one activity.
Yeah. I was thinking about this as like, this could be based on what did we do last year? Like 135 or 133 or something like that, hour and a half. And then an hour. So I was thinking, okay, this is going to be 2.5 hours of like tempo plus effort.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to make sure I'm taking the fuel in. And I was fully prepared to finish the short course and literally a complete 180 and get back out there and just do it again kind of thing. Like I was in my head, I was ready to do that. It didn't end up necessarily working out that way.
And why is that, Chipper?
Well, I had a few minutes to spare. I got 12 minutes to spare.
Yeah, and, someone set the course record for.
So that did happen. I gave it the gas from the word go. So they started the teams first. So they let the teams go, gave them about a minute, 90 seconds head start, and then they sent the solo athletes out. And at the 8 o'clock one, people were a bit on short course. I think probably was where more first timers were. They were a bit apprehensive of the water temperatures, and that was causing some issues for some people. But everyone set off and they did it, and I just took off. Like I'm like, I got to warm up. I want to swim hard, and I just booked it for that first exit that you remember last year. Same scenario. There's the rocks, and then there's the nice, you can kind of go around, go up the boat ramp. And I came out. They're like, oh, it's easier over here. And I'm just like, just like took right off across the rocks. Just like it was, just like in Utala here in a couple weeks, we'll be dancing across those things all day long. So it was good practice on that, and set off on the next run. And in a lot of our training, and thank you, Chris, for the kind words, we have been putting a lot of work in, and we haven't. This is the first time I really felt like we got to flex it, or I got to flex it. And so a lot of our training will be strong effort, very strong effort. And that's sort of how I was thinking about it. Like, okay, these runs, it's 5K-ish. I can be strong to very strong on all these runs. And that's what I set out to do. It's not fire road. I mean, it's trails, there's rocks and roots and all sorts of things. So I was making sure I had my footing, and then
you can't be lollygagging.
Yeah,
like
wasn't lollygagging
and stuff.
And I was trying to go sub 1 hour, so I could at least like take a breath in between. But went back across. The wife and kids were down there cheering me on.
Yeah, I got a text. Chipper's first out of the water. I'm like, hell yeah. She's like, and then the next text was like, is this causing you FOMO? I'm like, it's cool. Keep them coming. Keep them coming.
Yeah, so took off. And then after that, the run 2 is a mile run, and that one's on a multi-use path. I mean, and Folsom, California is like an endurance paradise. There's mountain bikers, road cyclists, trail run. Everyone was going to stand up paddleboard.
If you need to work on your heat training, just hang out there.
Yeah. So tore down that mile path there, got to the next swim, and I was being really diligent on my fueling as well. I knew I had to. I think I took at least 2, pretty solid of those collapsible flasks at every aid station on the short course. Came across, boom, jammed that swim across, ran back to where swim 2 was. It's a really cool little circuit course, the short course one. And so this is my second time seeing the person at who was manning swim entrance 2 and 4. And he's like, oh yeah, you're doing good. You're doing good. And I just barreled in, shot across, and that was it for the first one. So
it's a victory
for the W there.
Yeah, I mean, even though it's probably safe to say that that course record was probably a little soft.
Yeah,
still. Hey man.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you. A non-low tide boy affiliated. I don't think I've won a race ever in my life. Certainly have not done any course record business. That's just not my territory that I'm normally in. So, and I don't do great with so much positive attention and congratulations. But so, yeah, it was cool. I finished. I was huffing and puffing, and then the timing guy's like, "Okay, if you want to take a break, you can take a break. I'll just start you." They were being extremely accommodating. Like, if I wanted to rest for 20 minutes, they would have just started my time whenever and let me go.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I'll be ready. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So
it's like I decided to do this.
Yes,
okay,
I'm like, I put this on. I'm the one who suffers this. And my kids came over. They were really excited for me. It was really awesome to see him and my wife and everyone there. And my son's like, good job, Dad. Way to win the race, Dad.
It's like, again.
I'm like, really funny. And I took a gel. I had 12 minutes till the next race. So I took a gel, took some more fluids, and they had some of those like peanut butter pretzel things with the
pretzel inside, like from Trader
pretzel,
Joe's.
but then there's peanut butter inside. So I probably had like 6 of those. I'm like, okay, this is kind of like aid station-y type food. So I kind of like, if I took my sweet time at an aid station. So I did that, kind of walked around.
You tried to take a poop or something?
I didn't try to have any of that. I didn't have any pee incidences this time.
That's good.
And so pretty much got back into the water with everybody else.
Right, yeah, because it's a swim start. So true to swim run, it actually starts with a swim, and it's almost like you just wade into sort of the shallow water.
Yep.
And you just wait for the proverbial bullhorn to go off. So from the first race to the second race, you were still sort of dialed in in terms of race mode. So obviously for the first one, you wanted to get it done before the second one started. Yeah. Mission accomplished there. But for the long course, which for people keeping track at home, it's 8.3 miles total with 6 swims and 5 runs. So, again, not some crazy 30K, 35K course, but long course on a hot day with hot runs and cold swims. Yeah. How are you thinking? Okay, you're at the start line. You're going to start the long course. What's going on through your head?
So the long course, you could tell more people came to play on that one. Blake, who we had met before, so there were some veteran swim runners there. He's done Attila 2 times at least that I can remember. So he's a veteran. He had a new partner. There was some more swimrun people. I said, okay, this is gonna be fun here on this one. The teams, and then so they let the teams go out first. And I was thinking, I was like, okay, I've done the swim once. I was really happy with my line and the way I paced everything. So I'm just gonna try to repeat that again. And there was a much more bigger pack on the swim this time.
Did you go through them, or you try to just like kind of?
I just kind of got out of the way, and I just was like, I was going for brute force. Like, I was just going to try to leave everybody in the dust.
Yeah, that was like catch and pass, basically.
Yeah, like don't worry about dodging people. Just like fucking full speed ahead. Like that's how I'm gonna crank it out.
Like triathlon swim style.
Yeah, just full
swim
on
over people.
So I was kind of over on the side of folks, and they had. Each swim had at least 2 to 3 water safety people, either on a stand-up paddleboard or a kayak. So felt really safe from a water safety perspective. Not really too much difficult currents to navigate or anything like that. So they let the teams out another a minute or 90 seconds, and then we took off. So for me, that was kind of like, ooh, cool. I'm going to try to chase some of these people down. It gave me a little bit of a carrot,
sure,
which was fun. Up tempo on the swim, and same thing out to that same exit. And Blake and his partner were first out of the water on the swim there. I was close. I was trying. I was really trying. Yeah. I was like, I'm gonna try to get Blake on this one, but couldn't do it. He had a good gap there, and then the first run again. So kind of repeating. Deja vu. So some of these people that were running the swim entrance, I saw like 4 or 5 times in one day, and they like by the end of like, hey Chipper, like they knew my name and stuff. So it was pretty funny. But yeah, same thing. Just trying to really keep the tempo up and keep the pace up. I didn't write anything on my paddles. I was kind of really trying to go off feel on this, and I was again making sure of the fueling. So. I think it's maybe a half-mile run for run 1, swim back across. It's probably 400 or 500 meters on the swim back to the
0.25 miles.
Yeah, to where you started. And then again, my wife and kids were there screaming and everything. And I think I was in the lead on this time. By the time I got back there, and the family and everyone was really excited about that. And then I knew I had a mile run, and I was okay. Now's time to start to get on the fueling there. And the Vig Air was great. I didn't have to really unzip it on the first race. I didn't unzip it at all. Just kind of carried my paddles. but wanted to make sure I was getting all my fueling in. And then cut back across the water after the mile run, and then that's what kind of takes you on those two longer runs.
Longest run of the day, which is 2.5 miles, which, I remember it from last year. It got pretty exposed. Was it already feeling pretty toasty?
It was pretty toasty. So that would have been, even at 9:30, 9:45 in the morning, it was probably still in the low to mid 70s, I would say, already. So I wasn't sweltering, but I'm like, oh yeah, take your cap off, unzip, get some air out. So I did those things. They had an aid station timed pretty perfectly right in the middle. Had a couple sips, and then it was another, and it's dry, it's exposed. You're kind of in this. You could tell it used to be like a riverbed, basically, is kind of what it felt like you're running on. And yeah, really great markings for course markings.
Were there people around you, or at this point you were sort of like in no man's land?
Back in the
usual.
same spot in no man's land.
The royal we,
especially obviously. on the longer runs. There was some short course people on even some of the first transitions that were still making their way through. But yeah, that longer 2 mile run was like, okay, this is a good tempo effort. Make sure I'm fueling, don't get too hot, and really try to manage things, but still keep the pace good. But I was, just as I remember last year, by the time that swim 4 or whatever happened, it was like, yeah, need
like
this
the
thing.
steam's kind of coming off of you second you get in the water. And you managed to, it seems like from your Strava that at least on the swims, you really stayed pretty consistent. Was there a swim where you're like, I'm going to take it easy? It seemed like everything you were at least holding like 80% effort.
Yeah, I was definitely, and again, our swims are, race pace, race pace, 85%, 90%, 95. I would say I was probably 85 to 90%, which is above race pace for these. And that's something, like you said, we've been putting the time in the pool, and this year especially, I feel like I have made a lot of gains on the swim, and I felt like I needed to get out there. I needed to like let it fly for a little bit. So I was just giving it the gas on the swims. There and not dogging the transitions either. That was one thing that was really a focus of mine as well.
Well, I feel like that's almost become kind of our, if we can have a trademark, is like, let's make these transitions look good.
Yeah, a little snappy. Put a clinic on for folks if they need it.
Yeah, so between run 4 and run 5, you have a short swim, but run 4 is 2.5 miles, 0.2 mile swim, and then a 1.8 mile run, that's when you're sort of starting to head back towards home.
Yeah.
Still staying on top of your nutrition, hitting the aid stations right, trying to be crisp with everything.
Staying on nutrition. That one, right out of the swim, I took the cap off and unzipped. I just made sure I need to get all air possibilities out of here, and just started chipping away at that run. Again, fairly exposed and kind of a punchy course. Like, it's not flat. I mean, you're going up little hills and you're kind of zigging and zagging in and out of the trail on the bike path.
It's undulating.
It is undulating. It was undulating. Didn't see any snakes. I thought for sure maybe there would be a snake or two around, but just keep going, and honest is like, just keep pressing, keep it on the gas. And then I knew that last aid station, I was back there, and again, this is probably the third or fourth time I had seen this. He's like, "Hey, how's it going? Good job." And the kayaker didn't even bother going out with me because he had seen me. He's like, "Okay, fine. I think you're okay there." They had some really fun. I was thinking about this later. I was like, the TBF team and Bill and everybody, they get swim run, because the exits were like, oh, there's this cool little rowdy little tree thing that you can get out, and there was even some rocks you kind of would float up on, very, very reminiscent of actually in Sweden, some of them. And you kind of crawl out there and you're cutting through. They get it, and they made it. It definitely had the swim run charm to it, I guess, on the characteristics of the course.
Yeah. Yeah, so you essentially crush that last swim, win the second race of the day.
Yeah.
And I guess there's a funny story. Like they were doing the podium for the short course, but they had to wait because you were out there running the long course, so they couldn't even do the podium ceremony.
There's a vacancy on the steps, so they had me go up there, and they like gave me. So I won 2 of these water bottles. So I literally up there like hands full of hardware, right. which is champagne problems, I guess. But and I mean, again, it's really great to be able to do this, and the family was there. I have not seen my kid. I mean, my kids, they love me because I'm their dad. They jumped up on the podium with me and were on the first one. They wanted my wife to take all the pictures, and my daughter like was glued to my hand. She wanted to hold hands with me the whole time we're talking. She's like, "Dad, how many people do you know here? How many people are your friends?" Like, if I ever need to get in her
it's
good
like,
graces,
I'm a micro-influencer.
I'm a micro-influencer. But it was, we always, as parents, I think we talk a lot about, this is a good core memory for the kids. This was some good dad core memories for me. Like I had a good time. I had a lot of fun. It was great to be there with the family. It was obviously really awesome that I won both these races and did really well. I felt like I was able to definitely get whatever fitness I had bottled up in me out, and I feel like I put it out there. Yeah,
I mean, totally. I mean, I think it's one thing to train super hard, but then it's another thing to sort of be able to express it on race day. And yeah, I mean, this is uncharted territory for you on some level, right? It's like first time racing solo. It's a new thing. I'm sure it was in its way. For the same reason I'm looking forward to Swimrun on Cape Cod. It's just like, hey, this is a different way to experience the sport. There's essentially, only a handful of ways you can experience it as a men's team. For us as a men's team, as a mixed team, or solo, right? So this is just yet another way of experiencing the sport. So in that vein, what's your sort of, how do you feel? I mean, I'm sure you're a purist like me. The team aspect is kind of where it's at, but how did it feel racing solo? Was it, were you just like talking to, like turning over to say something, or like, oh, wait, he's
Chris,
not here?
Hey, I will say, obviously, it would have been more fun with you there, obviously, and us tethered together and really put on a show for everyone like we did last year. But it was an interesting experience solo. I mean, yeah, it wasn't anything of like, oh, I feel like I could go faster here, and we would have done something different. It wasn't like that, but it was, you're just, it's only you.
Sure. I mean, so, it's more of a pure experience in the sense that like you don't have to. I mean, you only have to worry about yourself.
Yeah,
which is a different dynamic.
I could have taken a run. I could be like, hey, I'm just gonna jog it on up. Like I totally could have done that. It was a lot of it. It put it more on myself, and I think that was good for me that day because it sort of felt like it needed to happen. I guess I was like, I need to get out here. We've had some races canceled. We had kind of a misfire. Like I'm feeling, I need to let the ponies go. So it was good, and not that we couldn't have done that together, obviously, but yeah. But, I think an hour and a half, 2 hours is probably what I would put the max at it for me. Because I'm like, I don't know. I can't.
Yeah,
I
like you would want to do like
like
canned, like long course solo. Yeah, that'd be. You probably just end up like teaming up with someone and chatting with them or something like that.
It would have to be that way. I think just for myself being so chatty.
Yeah, and let me ask you, from the TBF side of things. After the race, I'm sure you chatted them up. Did they seem pleased? Are they still going to keep putting these events on?
Very happy with it. I heard multiple folks. The Low Tide Boyz loaner wetsuit program was fully extended this weekend.
We subscribed.
Had 3 or 4. I had 2 suits out and an arc keel out. They had a great time. It was one of their first structured races. Like, wow, this race was really, I'm like, these guys know what they're doing. They've been putting races on since 1998, like 20, 30 races a year. They got reps.
When we've mentioned this before, I mean, you have to appreciate that they're like, hey, Swimrun, that's a new thing. Let's try to put on a race. But they really did their homework, try to put on a good race. And again, for it being the only race in California, which is a depressing statement to say, if this is the only race, you know what?
You're going to have a great experience.
You know what? Good. At least it's a good race, right?
Yeah. I would say the only sort of detractors, I saw one person that got pulled because they were too cold from the water. So that would be the only thing, because I think the disparity between the hot air temps in the wetsuit and the cold water, someone said they saw it 58. I don't think it was 58. I would probably say low 60s, 60, 61.
Maybe it felt like 58 because the air was so hot. You get in the water, it feels like it's chilly. But it's also like, so California's had record snowfall.
Yeah.
So all that runoff is still happening. And eventually
they let it out from the dam.
Yeah.
So it's the bottom of the dam where they're letting all that off, which is like the cold water, I guess, that they've had. So I think that the water temperatures definitely kind of threw a curveball on it. And I don't think they had the mandatory wetsuit kind of requirement on this. And obviously a ton of Low Tide Boys love. I saw multiple shirts, hats out there. I didn't get a chance to say hi to everybody or high five you or whatever. But thanks for coming out and showing the love on that. It was just really awesome to see, and I think it also validates a lot to our part. My wife, like, hey, see, people do listen.
Oh yeah, I feel like anytime there's something like that, it definitely gives the show like an extra 6 months of runway or something like that. It's like, and I think, this is what Susan was telling me, because I was obviously giving her like the race report from you, because she's so used to getting a race report. I'm like, well, let me just give you what Chipper told me. And I mean, from where she was coming from, she was like, it's so great that it's just like the people appreciate it, right? Like we went up there a few weeks ago, sat in traffic super long to give them a presentation to help people make sure they're ready for the race.
Yeah.
And, and the fact that, hey, you do anything in the podcast space, there's a million podcasts. There's only, I mean, I guess the best way to say it is like people already have the podcast that they listen to. If you're gonna be in that rotation, someone else is getting bumped. So the fact that other people are getting bumped and are choosing to listen to us, that's not something that we take for granted. And it's just like, like basically what my wife was saying. She's like, this is why you do it.
It really it puts the wind in the sails, so to speak. And there was a second place on the podium. Team Pink Socks was their name, because they had pink socks. Low Tide Boys
sense.
lids, loved it. And at the hotel we were staying at, there was the Diablo.
That's Catherine Meinhardt. She's a Brazen Racing person,
love
streaker,
it.
former
that is
streaker.
Her, yeah,
so.
Nice, good shout out there. You pulled the name and I didn't. That's
no worries.
There.
I know her from way back.
Diablo Endurance Club or Community, a women's only triathlon multi-sport club. They had like a training camp basically, and they were staying at the same hotel. So I saw these, 15, 20 women constantly this whole weekend. And I was hanging out with them at the spa when the kids were, that was one thing, the race. And they're like, Dad, we got to go to the pool. And they're making me throw them and stuff. I'm like, guys, my shoulders are pretty smoked right now, but okay.
That's part of it.
Yeah, that's part of the job. They had a great weekend. They came up for a training weekend. On Saturday, some people went for a mountain bike ride. Some people went for a road ride. A couple of them did the swim run. Some people did stand-up paddleboard, and they all, for 2 or 3 days, just did this whole thing. They're over in the Bay Area as well, so big shout-out to them. That was really cool. They came through on that, convinced some of their endurance people to join in the fun and scratch the itch, and I think a couple of them got hooked for sure. So
it's all
mission accomplished.
Yeah, that's all we can do.
Yeah.
That's all we can do. Awesome. Well, what's next for you, Chipper? What races do you have coming up next?
Well, and I think that, that's what people are like, oh, you did both races. And like, it's really, not to downplay it, but that was 2.5 hours-ish.
Yeah.
And we have 10.5. We'll just say 10. That we're going for 10. Let's be honest. We have 10 coming up in just let's call it a month. So 4 weeks. It is a month.
Yeah, but when this show airs, it's basically going to be a month.
We have Attila, the Swimrun World Championship coming up. Our sophomore album, sophomore temp at Attila.
Yeah,
really looking forward to it. And this was a good, I think for me too. It was a good confidence booster for me.
Yeah,
and I think usually I'm in my own head. I'm like, okay, I'm the one slowing us down, and this one was a good like, okay, you can do it, and I think it was a good confidence booster for me, and it definitely got me more pumped and primed for Attila. So
I love it.
Not at the same pace, but
oh my god,
dude, we've been blowing up.
Yeah. Well, I'll make sure that we keep it in our pants. But yeah, I mean, I think that, my FOMO was obviously, hey, there's a swim run happening in my home fucking state and I can't go. But I'm glad that at least one of us got to at least go through some sort of race activity again. Like we weren't able to do that in Casco Bay, and I guess it's mostly on me for not wanting to do the revised
we did the
course.
First one.
And I'm at peace with that because I was cold, and I felt like I had another responsibility there, sort of community manager. But I'm glad you had that experience because that confidence boost only helps the team, right? You feeling positive about it can only help the team, and man, congrats.
And I mean, that's not an easy mindset to have for yourself. And I know I would probably be struggling mightily with it if the roles were reversed. So, good on you.
Oh man,
and
I'm super zen about it.
We're gonna. Attila is just gonna be a blast.
Yeah, no, I'm super. I feel super zen about it. And again, my main emotion is just pride, man. You freaking went out there, you crushed it. It's one thing to be like, I'm going to do both races. I remember texting him like, dude, that's a boss move. And you followed through, man. So it's awesome.
Yeah. Well, it helped that it was at 8:00 race start. That was nice. I still got to sleep in. That was nice. But again, major kudos to TBF Racing. And if you're in the Northern California area, I mean, they just put on solid events. I'm sure they're probably out there this weekend again. They probably have some like stand-up paddleboard race or some mountain bike triathlon. So go check that out. And this is always one on the calendar for us.
For sure. I think that's it, huh?
That does it.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Cheers. That's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a rating or review, since that's the best way to help other people discover the show and the sport of swim run.
Check out our website, lowtideboys.com. That's boys with a Z, for swim run resources, including gear guides, tips, how-to videos, and so much more. Make sure to check out our meme page at The Low Tide Boys on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, send us a DM or email us at lowtideboys@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Riding Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swim run and other activities.
Lots of activities. Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
Then a run.
And then a swim.
Then another run.
Then another swim.
Then run some more.
Just keep going.
Let's go.
And then stop at some point because,
And fuel. Don't forget to fuel.
Gotta fuel too.
Of course, yes.